including Middle East, and that's why we had the talks in Doha as well. So I think Middle East really need to wake up. They really need to understand how critical the situation is becoming and how fast it is. I can, if you want, I can also pin up some tweets, because in occupied Kashmir, in illegally Indian occupied Kashmir, the situation is changing with every day. Because after the India has been kicked out of the way India has been kicked out of the Afghanistan, the way the India has to run away, they were running proxies in Afghanistan against Pakistan. They were harboring terrorists in Afghanistan against Pakistan. They had a whole plan how to destabilize Pakistan, and now they had to run away, and they're very worried because now our eastern borders are secured. They intentionally created troubles. They had terrorists in placed in the eastern borders, and they would attack our forces all the time from eastern borders. Now that the eastern borders are clear and Talibs are there, and I'm not sure if their name is still banned. I'm not sure if their name is still banned in the by because we cannot even say their name, because they're banned in Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. If you even just write the word, this is such, we live in a world of dictatorship where everybody wants to control everything, but they just keep on saying that you are free and you have freedom of speech, when we actually don't have any freedom, not the freedom of speech, nor the freedom of expressions, or even the freedom of express ourselves. So I really look towards my Muslim countries, my Muslim brothers and sisters, to come for us, to realize it, that when you are a Muslim,
Yes. Sister
when
Sabah, do you see
yes,
parallelism between the Palestinian occupation by Israel? I think this annexation came at similar times, at similar times. You see,
it is such, we are actually seeing, I'm so sorry I cut you down. We are actually seeing in occupied Kashmir, we are seeing the Israeli model getting in place, and with a very quick speed, the same way they did. They use the pellet guns. They Israel is the master of every evil in the world. This is a truth. Every evil that exists, may it be capitalism, may it be violence, may it be weapon testing, may it be occupation, may it be war crimes, may it be crimes against humanity. You look towards Israel and you'll find them. They started it. They were the ones who were behind it. And we are actually the affectees of Israel. Pakistan is the biggest affectee of Israel, because we do not believe on, or we haven't what you call it, we do not believe them as a country. We do not believe as a country. In our passports in Pakistan, in green passports, it's written you can travel everywhere with that passport except Israel, because we do not believe them. We haven't registered them as a country. So because this is stolen Palestinian land, this is occupied Palestinian land. There is no such thing as Israel. Where is Israel? Where they stole a land and they call it Israel. So what? Because they have more money, so they get to say that. Because you know what Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, our founding leader, what he said about Israel? He said Israel is the bastard illegal child of the West. Well, this is a fact. You will, if you just go back to the history, if you just go back to the way in 1917,
we should say,
after the First World War.
let's not use the curse words.
Yes, okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just got carried away. But you know what the fact is?
Which is the
If
spoiled child of the West. I want to ask you about the Israeli lobby. That's normally
the
provoked
APEC, yeah,
Islam, IPEC, and others. No,
yeah.
in also I know they are working in China and India, in Russia, to provoke hatred against Muslims.
Yes, they
What
do that.
can you
They're the
tell
biggest
about that? And can you tell us about Israeli provocations or kind of propaganda inside India? How they provoke this Islamophobic attitude toward Muslims?
the first thing the Israelis do is that they start playing the victim card. Oh, oh, we are the victims of the genocide. Oh, we are the victims of the Second World War. And we believe that. We know that. Fine. We are, but this has been more than like 70 years. And then in the process, they actually created more victims. I mean, they're the one who claim that they were victims of the Holocaust. Fine, okay, that's debatable. How much were the victim? But now the same people who are calling themselves victim are actually making other victims of their own violence, of their own injustice. And what they do is they first tell you that how sad we are and how victim they are, and then although it was Hitler who did whatever with them, but now all the blame is shifted towards the Muslims. Oh, Muslims do that. Muslims are the ones who create terrorism. Muslims are the one who export terrorism. I don't even know. Did they find any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Did they find anything in Afghanistan? What are Muslims responsible of? They do not. We are the ones who go through the worst Islamophobia in everywhere. Even if we are traveling on airports, if we are going in any big offices, we are the ones who actually we are the ones who suffer Islamophobia, and then they come and then they tell us that we are the bad ones. I want to know, why is Israel so close for India? Why is Israel so close to India? Why? Just for the Pakistan, just to destabilize Pakistan. We need to be straightforward now. We need to
Sister,
remove.
sister, you are talking a little bit, thinking a little bit narrowly, because they are always, first they are trying to, make sure that people don't sympathize with Arabs, then Muslims. It's not only Pakistan. They are also active in China or in West very much. So when people don't, so they want to make sure that nobody sympathize with Palestinian occupation or and all the cruelty they do there. So thank you very much. I'll come back to you again. We have Amir, Umair.
Yes, Umer.
Yes,
Umair.
yes. Assalamu alaikum. Gardasham, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Um, I just, I just want to say that the situation in the Middle East directly proportionates with the atrocities of Israel and America. The Americans are trying to protect the interests of Israel, and for that they've waged uncountable wars on the Middle Eastern countries like Syria, Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, and you go on. And the biggest human rights proclaimer in the world is the United States of America. But let's have a look at the history. In the recent history of the last 100 years, which country has killed the most number of human beings on the earth? It is the United States of America. Bombing 2 cities with the nuclear bomb, then waging war on Iraq on weapons of mass destruction, which turned out to be lies, waging war on Afghanistan, waging war on Libya, waging war on Syria. We just start naming it, and we can just go on and on and on. On the other hand, they are proclaiming the human rights and and then calling out Muslims as being terrorists. What about themselves? Nobody in the world is looking at what they're doing. Since all the media and all the West countries are aligned with them, and they've almost have a free hand of whatever they want to do. And on the other hand, Israel, with due respect, there are many Arab brothers sitting here. With due respect, they have most of the Arab leaders or rulers in their pockets. I'm sorry if I offended, but that's what it is. Nobody is from the Arab rulers are talking against the atrocities committed by the Israelis in Palestine. And I don't know if you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Fatih Tuna, you can accept, and we are discussing what went wrong in the Middle East, and can we fix it or whatever. And if you wanna comment on it, please accept the invitation. We have Dr. Ahmed. As Ahmed konuşmacı. Yes, Ustad Ahmed, salam alaikum. You want to comment? You know what happened? I see Israel is the extension of the Western hegemony in the region. So it is some has a it is a.
Professor, can I add one thing?
Yes.
Okay, if you guys were just talking about the Holocaust, but does it give the West a right to create a state for due to this Holocaust, that they're going to make a state for Israel right in the hands, right in the heart of the Muslim lands? Does they give them the right? What about the Arabs? Can't they claim that they've ruled 800 years in Spain? Shouldn't they be given the right to rule Spain also on this context?
The Muslims and the Ottoman Empire, they saved them from the Inquisition courts that were killing them or expelling them, and now they should show some mercy. But we should, I think it is very relevant to the current topic. What's wrong with the Middle East? I think the region was colonized, was divided, was weakened, and Israel is the extension of this colonization. Like today we discussed about proxy or the representative that also protects their interest in the region. So the West has a major interest in divided Arab world, divided Middle East, and many of the countries, Arab world is divided into 22 countries. There are 22 countries in the Arab League today, and this division itself is chaotic. That weakens. As Turks, of course, we don't like also this situation. We don't see this as benefiting Turkey. This dividedness, it caused a lot of infighting and a lot of controversy, and this weakens the region, and we are not happy with that. But we should mention that the region is divided, and Israel represents or makes sure, guarantees this division, because it is at the heart of this region in the Middle East, and with Israel having nuclear weapons or all kinds of weapons, the region cannot get united. We have Dr. Fatih Tuna. Dr. Tuna, hoş geldin. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. How are you?
Hello to everyone.
Hello.
Hi, I'm driving at the moment. I'm going to make a very short comment, then I will stay on listening part, if you don't mind, Hocam.
Sure, no problem.
I've just recently joined, as you know. What I believe in the Middle East, the Western countries won 2 wars, or one is definitely the one, First World War, and they did the Second World War. In my opinion, they set up a world order in the region, especially in the Middle East, and that order is providing their today's wealth, today's whatever they gain from that. Anything happening in our region is the continuity of that interest. Whatever happening in our countries, in the Muslim world especially, they're trying to that world order to continue. So in my opinion, to get out of this problem, only one option for us, the countries in the region, is that we get together. We should put all our differences on the side. We should get together. There is no other way to get over this battle. And it's a long story, of course, but I have to make it short. I'm driving, as I said. That's the, as much as I can summarize. There's no other way to get out of it unless all the countries in the Middle East, they get together. As you mentioned a while ago, they separated countries in the Middle East one by one. At the same time, they were getting together in their own, countries in the region or continent, whatever. But they divided us. Is this division going over a century now? Every country they divide, they don't stop. They want to divide again and again and again. The process is still continuing for
Dr.
any
Fatih,
country in the region.
we are discussing the Middle East today, but the Muslim world, I think, overall is not much different from the Middle East, right? From the Arab world.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, if you look at it today or last 50, 60 years, check the wars where they have been happening. Which countries continuously in the war, one by one, step by step. Look at around Mediterranean, the Gulf countries. There's no peace, over 100 years now. Not a single country has a peace. You could put also Balkan countries into this frame, but yeah, we're discussing Middle East, but it's the same. After the First World War, whatever they colonized or ruled or whatever they did, you all know it. And there is not a single country in the Muslim world has deep peace. Maybe some, in some time, some decades, a few decades, 10, 20, whatever. But in the end, they are in trouble. And my opinion, as I said, they won big wars. Their civilization won the wars. They set up a world order by economy, like a military, like a NATO, and you name it. They want that to continue. To provide that continuity, they're working on us regularly, non-stop. And our country is becoming a instrument of that. As one of the brothers said, that rulers of Middle East or Muslim countries, we became their easy target for them. We became that, and they easily operating on our countries. They don't have a big struggle to do that because the groundwork has been done strongly or in their benefit, of course. They easily interfere, they easily access to the wane of these countries and destabilize us. We need to get out of that first.
Yes, I mean, Central Asian republics, they are Muslim Turks, they have all kinds of resources. They are also divided and they cannot be, similar to Arabs, cannot get the most of their wealth.
Yes. Hocam, look at it this way. We have all the sources, oil, gas. Even the religions are all from here. All the cultures born in this region.
The people, those who maintain, the life goes on in the West are the Muslim doctors, engineers, all kinds of people serving in the West, and they cannot in their home countries. And we have, Doctor, yes, yes. Please complete what you say.
Yeah,
and
okay.
Then...
What I was saying, when they won these wars, it's a 300 years story, actually, even more about our region, minimum 300 years. Talking about or last 150 years, but the work gone, in my opinion, minimum 300 years. They set up like a NATO for the army. They set up IMF for the money. They set up UNESCO, UNICEF, whatever. All the institutions they created to rule, and they are doing so. And they are the most strong area that interfere in our lives in the Middle East. My last sentence is to get out of this vicious circle really over and over and again. We have to get together. No way out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fatih. I also thought about it today and tweeted, some people, some countries like Pakistan, they got tired of America and now they go to China. But I don't think, of course, I'm not blaming them because America is pressuring them a lot. And this is kind of necessity, but the ideal would be like, the superpowers are all the same. They want you to serve their interests, and they don't care much about your prosperity, your development, or democracy, etc. So they are
You mentioned the China. One more thing I'm going to add to you is a very important, I think. I was in Africa 5 years ago in one of the country. There's a big think tank or institution, the boss, the headquarter. They told me they invited China some time ago in some whatever project. I asked, why did you invite China? Exactly what you just said. He said, we had to create a balance against America. We had no choice.
Yes, I mean it's good to work both of them or some of them, but it's not wise to side with one and then become the enemy of the other.
Yes,
And we
that's
have
what
to
he told me. Exactly what you said. Yeah.
unite forces together with Muslim
Yeah.
countries.
Thank
Everything.
you very much for giving me the opportunity, Ahmed
Thank
Hocam.
you, Doctor.
Can
Thank you.
can I give you another point about this topic,
Sure,
and maybe you can clear me? It's just my understanding about this issue, but if I'm wrong, please do clear me, because it's not my subject. I'm not really studying it, but I know it's international relations are your subject, or anyone else wants to if answer it, because I think India, and as we know, Israel is in full support of India, and America is in full support of India. So I think these countries did not left Pakistan any other choice but to side with China for to fight the war that we cannot just do it just by ourselves, because we are facing some very cruel and some very big strong enemies. So we needed an ally. So I do not think that, in, as they say, in the nations, in the countries, there are no friends, there are no enemies, there are only allies, or not allies. So I think China is more of an ally, which is strategically put in a place which we can use because it's in our neighbors. And we also know that any threat that's to Pakistan a threat will also be can also be a threat to China. So we kind of serve each other's purpose. So China is not so much a friend than an ally, and an ally that we must have to combat, to face India, to face Israel, which is working in China, and we have Brigadier Zaman. He can even talk more about it. To face America, who's also working in India. So we also criticize. Sometimes I also think in the same exact way that you said, Professor, that how can we leave one superpower, and just become friends with another superpower and think about that. But I do not think, sadly, the world, not just America, not just Israel, but Europe as well, Canada as well, Australia as well. I know Turkey has been always there with us. I know Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and all the Middle East has mostly with us. Not very vocal. I would say that maybe if Middle East would have been more vocal with Pakistan, maybe if Saudi Arabia, maybe if UAE, maybe if Oman. I mean, if they would have been a little bit more siding with Pakistan, we wouldn't even need China. But sadly, as you said, there's so many division in Middle East, in Muslim countries. Although Turkey is there, Turkey is like, thank God for Turkey that there is a Turkey in the world, like seriously. So otherwise, like, we're so alone.
Thank you.
What else do we do if we don't side with China? It's just my question.
We face similar problems. I'm not blaming or criticizing our brothers in Pakistan. I'm just saying be careful, because America also doing the same, bad things to Turkey, supporting the PKK, trying to create a PKK state in our southern borders. And we want to have a defense system, and America says, no, we don't sell to you, and you cannot buy from somewhere else. We are trying to buy it. I mean, we bought it from Russia, but India bought it. They didn't say anything, but they make a big case when Turkey bought S-400 missiles. So it is like a double standard, but it always better to be, if you be like siding with one power, the other power just attack you more. And we have Ustad Ahmed. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Professor Saab. Thanks for giving me opportunity. Thank you so much. We are very much careful. And fortunately, Alhamdulillah, we Pakistan are the one having most experience with superpowers. That's why thanks for caring us. About your topic, I think there is a kind of jealousy and hypocrisy in especially US and Western countries about Middle East, Arab world, especially GCC countries, because of their progress and their development. I have seen they hardly speak about whenever there is any natural disaster, any problem over the world. And GCC countries are the first to come out for help. Recent COVID is an example. You can see over the world in India, especially, and even whenever there is any flood or any earthquake, anything else, even regarding refugees, GCC are the first to help out. I've been living here in GCC for 6 years. I have seen people from over the world are living here. Millions are non-Muslims working over here. I haven't seen any single incident anybody is being treated by as per his caste, creed, or his color, or even his religion. There is equality, there is a balance, there is peace, there are equal rights, and that's the good thing. Yes, unfortunately, we are lacking here. What's wrong over here? We are lacking in unity, and I endorse Sabah. There is one important thing. We GC are not as much outspoken about Kashmir as much we should be, as we
Even
are for the
Palestine.
Palestine. Yeah.
Kashmir and Palestine are the two most
So
ignored
yeah,
and the most
I cannot
cruel.
take more
Yeah.
time as we have Brigadier Tariq Saab with us. So thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. May I say something if no one else is to speak?
Sure,
Walaikum
sure.
salam, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Well, I just recently joined your space and I was hearing the discussion, and I think it's a very, very important topic, interesting one as well. Well, let me tell you one thing that though I'm not representing government or even army because I'm a retired person, but in my personal views.
As a starter, Brigadier, do you see the Middle East is the victim or the cause of all these problems?
No, I don't. I won't term it to be cause of all these problems. Sooner or later, unfortunately, it will. You would see that it's sort of victim. There is no doubt about it. It's my own personal opinion. But just to come to that point, I would just give a small preamble, because you said that in order to be with one superpower, we should not deny the other one. Well, I agree to this extent. But these superpowers are the bigger powers. They should not behave like a possessive lover. Well, if you are siding with someone and someone is your friendly country, that country should not mend fences with the other country, because world is a global village nowadays. And survival for the survival of a country, one has to see the country's own interest as well. We have tested all friendships, even with the USA, but unfortunately, they have not proved to be a worthy of it, or proved to be a sincere friend. Because we have witnessed two major wars with India, even three, and if we include 1948 war, then 4 wars. And you know that India was very friendly with Russia, and Pakistan was because right from the beginning we mended fences with USA, and we took it as a sincere friend. But to be honest, during all the wars, there was no major contribution from USA side, no major, not much of the significant support to Pakistan as compared to the Russian support to India, because they were giving them all aircrafts, all military hardware, financial support, and everything. And in our case, if I recall 1965 war, though I was a minor child at that time, and even 1971 war, I was a student, school-going student. But we had been hearing a lot that Americans, huge, you can say, ship with all the military hardware and equipment is coming to Pakistan. But to be honest, that never reached even in both the wars, even in 1971. And even evidences are there that in the recent past now, USA has openly supported India, our arch rival, and even they're sitting in Afghanistan. India was there, and all sort of terrorism was being promoted from that side through our province Balochistan. So certainly we are not kids because we have seen our nation knows that who is friend and who is foe. These superpowers. If I just compare with, just please give me just 1 minute more. Now, while comparing with China, well, China has proved to be a time-tested friend with Pakistan. And Pakistan's foreign policy, what I know, I understand is that that is very fair and square, that be friendly with all and no enmity, even with the neighbors, even with the arch rivals. We were the first ones. We wanted to develop peace with them. And instead of falling into war, we preferred that we should just focus on the regional cooperation and development and all sort of things. But all the time backstabbing was there with us from their side. And now, while seeing the entire scenario, especially in Southeast Asian countries, that America's I think interest was too much, and they have been interfering a lot, directly or indirectly. So, because these superpowers, they have interest. They have interest of selling their own equipment. You asked about the Middle East. I would say that what all happened in Middle East. We should not lose sight from Syria. We should not lose sight from Iraq. We should not lose sight from Egypt, and like other countries. Who is to be blamed for that? And then they basically want to sell off their military hardware, the equipment, and all that machinery and everything, and they just have their own vested interest. There is no other reason of they becoming so friendly with even Gulf countries and even Pakistan and even Southeast Asian countries. Last comment is that basically they have their own vested interests. There is no doubt about it, but I have a soft corner for China because I have seen throughout my military service until I was serving, and thereafter, even after the retirement, I have seen that China has been a very, very peaceful country, and they had been taking care of us, and they have been very friendly even in the past. So certainly, once you have a choice of making a friend, you see that who is sincere, who would not backstab you, who would just look after your interest, who would be coming to you in the hour of need. Certainly, similarly, this is in case of humans, and same is the analogy in countries as well. The developing countries do look for such. Yes, please.
Uniting both Pakistan and China, maybe as a joint, as a common enemy. Right, Dr. Tariq?
Yeah, I'm listening. Sorry, I couldn't get your question.
Because you have India and as a common adversary between both.
Yes, there is a commonality. I agree with you that India is a common adversary because they are sharing their border with China as well in Ladakh side. And you might have seen that they had been trying to be nasty, I must say, because on that end as well. And China taught them a sort of lesson over there in the recent past. So this is a common adversary, no doubt about it, because China is also not comfortable with India, because China also knows that India is guarding the interest of USA in the region. And if an opportunity comes, because USA, America was preparing India to be a local regional power, and China would never allow that. Certainly, they have the rivalry, and this is a common thing. But Pakistan still, I would say that it's a peace-loving nation, and it's not that like that. It's not the only reason of our rivalry with India is not that they are rival or they are enemy of China. No, Our rivalry is because of certain other reasons as well, because they have imposed 2-3 wars on us, and especially the Indian-held Kashmir, occupied Kashmir. You just see how much cruel they have been they over there, and they've been killing innocent Muslims, and they have been firing on us every now and then from the line of control as well. They have been killing innocent citizen on this side of the border, this side of the line of control as well. Certainly, our rivalry with India is not only because of this reason that they are arch rivals with India. They are China. No, our rivalry is because India has been imposing wars on us. India has been creating terrorism in our country, and India doesn't want to see Pakistan strong. That is so unfortunate. Otherwise, Pakistan is very much peace-loving country, and we want peace in the region. We don't want a war. But if war is imposed on us, we won't spare them, and we would retaliate the way our Prime Minister said that we won't think of retaliating, but we will retaliate. And you might have seen on 27th of February, a couple of years ago, they tried to cross our borders, and we shot down their fighting aircraft, and one of their pilot, he was made POW, prisoner of war, and then we showed a lot of magnanimity and gesture that we returned it to them. Otherwise, he was a prisoner of war, and we would have treated him in that manner, but we returned it. This shows how much magnanimity prevailed and on Pakistan side, and we have a big heart. Otherwise, being Muslims, we have our own norms and traditions. Yes, please.
Brigadier, what is the how you say it in Urdu? The brigadier, what is the word? How you say brigadier in Urdu language? I am wondering if it is similar to Turkish or not. When we say Brigadier Tariq in Urdu, how you say it? If you hear me. Your mic is off.
Same as it is in English, we say in Urdu, brigadier.
Brigadier, okay. Okay, thank you. We have, I think it says Amir.
Hi, Professor. Hi, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, everyone's good. Everyone's good. Listening with some interest in some recent comments. The discussion here is around the Middle East and what's wrong with the Middle East. Well, it's a very broad question. I'll try to.
I mean, our region of like Afghanistan is not much different from American invasion in Iraq and stuff. So even though we in the Middle East, but we are discussing more, but it's okay. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, the first thing to make very clear is that America, like most countries, have their own interests and vested interests, and that's why they do what they do. America's no different. I think the problem with America is that because of its might and power, it tends to be more ruthless in the execution of the protection of vested interests, and a lot of times that manifests itself as hypocrisy, as arrogance, as belligerence, and this is the nature of having a power of this type. But I think, and they are a reason, along with Israel, for a lot of instability in the region. Now, they're one of the reasons. There are many reasons why the Middle East, and we can talk about the subcontinent separately. There's a lot of reasons why the Middle East is unstable. And I think since the advent of the Sykes-Picot Agreement at the end of World War I, and the carving up of the Middle East, the end of the Ottoman Empire, these are all related. I can recommend a great book to you guys called A Peace to End All Peace by David Fronkin. It's a well-known book. It's a very good authority on World War I. But when they divided the Middle East up, then since that time, there have been rulers that were implanted, installed, and supported by the West, who came in the form of monarchies, dictatorships, unwanted leaders, puppet leaders, minority leaders. This is the history of the Middle East from Morocco all the way, I would say, to Indonesia, because let's not forget, Suharto and these sort of people as well, if you want to get into that detail. So what they've ensured, what the colonial powers ensured, is that there was never All of the leaders were instruments of control, and they have perpetuated for the last 100 years, with the exception, you could argue, of Turkey and Iran, in fact, in a particular strange way. The thing with Turkey is that
but we paid, Ustaz Amir, we paid a big price. We have to work very hard and for this exception.
I know. I'm familiar with the Treaty of Lausanne, which I believe is coming to an end next year or the year after. And I know there's a lot of constraint to put on Turkey as a result. But there's a deeper point here, which I'll move on to, which is it's difficult to explain it in such a short period of time here. There's a civilizational competition going on between the West and Islam. It's about 1,000 years old. It's manifested itself in various wars, not just the Crusades, but the fall of Constantinople was a great blow to these guys. The removal and the elimination of the Mughal Empire, albeit with its own frailties within, was also an objective of you can say Christian Europe at that time, right? The collapse of the Ottoman Empire, which was a thorn in the side of the European empires at the time, so they had to have the Ottomans suppressed as well. So it's just a fact of history that as the Enlightenment, the Reformation, you could argue, and the Enlightenment, post-Enlightenment period, as Europe was rising in terms of the scientific advancements and political development, you had a stagnation in the Middle East, in the Ottoman domains, also in the subcontinent, in the forms of the Mughal Empire. You had this stagnation, you had this lack of advancement, and that was extreme monarchism that was causing that problem. So, some would argue that this was the fate, this is how God decided nations to evolve. This is how they were meant to evolve, because the Muslims were no longer ruling the way they should have done. I mean, even the Ottomans, up until the 1500s, I would say, as many of you know, the big turbans that the Ottomans used to wear were symbolic of the kafan, the cloth to be enshrouded in when they were to be buried on the battlefield as shaheed, as martyrs. But there came a point in the 1500s when even the Ottomans stopped going out into, from the days of Ertugrul and Osman and all the way through to the 1500s, all the sultans used to be on the battlefield fighting. There came a time when they started sending their generals out. So that indicated that was the start of the demise of the Ottomans. But anyway, look, I'm digressing from the core point I want to make, and that was around the civilizational competition that the West has with Islam, and its determination to keep Islam and the Muslim nations suppressed, broken, disunited, anything to preclude and to prevent their resurgence and their uprising. Okay, and I mean, it's interesting that the drama, I don't want to digress again, but the Ertugrul drama, Dirilish, I think means resurrection. It's an interesting description for a reminder for all Muslims of exactly what the past was like and where we are now. So, look, the complex of the Crusades and the civilizational competition is still there. And getting back to the point about the Middle East, it's broken because of the leadership, because of the people do not have a voice. They're oppressed. They are suppressed by rulers. And with the onslaught of the discovery of oil in the hands of a few royal families across the Gulf nations, then you have a further suppression and kowtowing to Western interests at the same time, which prevents any progress. Now, let me tell you something, and Professor will probably vouch for this. Anytime you oppress a people in a country, you are oppressing the development of a nation. At the same time, when you free people, and this is an example in post-Enlightenment Europe, right, with the Industrial Revolution and the emergence of the middle class in the 19th century. When you free people, when you give them education, you will get the best out of people. People have a God-given magnificence inside of them, which is forever oppressed under an oppressive rule. The moment you free people to be what they want, to do what they want, you will get the best out of people. And unfortunately, the Middle East, the whole entire Middle East, you are not getting the best out of the people because they are under oppressive regimes supported by the West who have an agenda to keep the Muslim nations oppressed. Now,
Thank you.
my very last point.
Yes, last point, very quick.
Yeah, my last point is that, well, actually, I'll tell you what, I'll just go on and on. So I'll stop there and let somebody else speak, and then I'll come back if that's okay.
Because you stop in a very good place where we have crusaders. We had, first round, they remained about 100 and some years in the Arab world. The second round, actually, Turks and Ottomans, and Muslims, of course, leadership, they stopped the second wave, even though they went to the West and colonized, the whole American continent and Africa. They would not invade the Muslim world. Andalus, they want to make North Africa, Morocco, and Algeria, and all these places like Andalusia, and they want to kick out Muslims from there. But the Ottomans stopped them, which is the very major war, and nobody teach us. Even the Turks are not talking about.
Absolutely, yes.
How the Harb al-Thalath Muluk, and we have Dr. Muhammad Shanqiti. So we won the second round of crusade attacks, but unfortunately we lost.
It's not taught, absolutely. I mean, and the Spanish Inquisition itself is not taught. If you understand the horrors, what a horrible period in history that was. No one talks about that now, right? They all like gloss over it. Oh, it was history, and it was wrong. Look, that complex of Christian Europe against the Muslims has continued for 1,000 years, and I believe it. And one of the symbols of that is when General Allenby, when he walked into Jerusalem in 1917, I think he was 18, he got off his horse and walked in out of respect for the Holy Land. And the headline on the Times newspaper was, "We have recaptured the Holy Land after 1,000 years." And that's an indication of their thinking.
Brother, let's listen to Dr. Mohammed Mukhtar al-Shanqiti from Mauritania. He probably, his ancestors felt this crusader, pain in the neck, or kind of. Welcome, Dr. Shanqiti.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And how you see this rounds of crusades? First round was kicked out from Mashriq al-Arabi, and I think the second round was more on the Maghrib al-Arabi, which is on the Andalusia, and then Morocco, Algeria, where also Hijaz, Bilad al-Hijaz. How you see it? And of course, we had the third round where we lost. Go ahead, please.
It's interesting because my PhD was on crusades, actually, in Texas University. But I'm more familiar with crusade in the Levant, in Syria and Egypt and Anatolia, more than the crusades in North Africa, where I was born and lived. But in general, the crusades on North African coast were always a continuous phenomenon. It's not something that started like the crusades in the East, for example, in 1095 and ended in 1291, started at fixed point, ended at fixed point. No, the crusades in North Africa are a continuous confrontation over centuries, including the Spanish Reconquista, what they called Reconquista, that continued for centuries. So when they control the last Muslim enclave in Grenada, they started attacking North African coast. And as you have said, of course, it was the Ottomans who saved North African Muslims from the Crusades for hundreds of years. Since the Ottomans came to Tripoli, for example, to Libya in 1511, they became the shield for the region in a very crucial moment and very difficult confrontation. And we still remember Khairuddin Barbarossa and all of the great leaders. And that's why, by the way, the Arabs of North Africa have completely different perception about the Ottoman than some of the Arabs in the Middle East, for example, for two reasons. The Arabs in North Africa, first, they are really very grateful for the Ottomans for their efforts in defending the region from the Crusades in North Africa. And second, the majority of North African people are Muslims. They don't have big minorities who have some issues with the Ottomans as Muslims. And that's why still today there is a lot of positive perception about the Ottomans history and the Turkish history in North Africa, in the countries of the Maghreb, more than in some Arab countries in the Levant, for example, or the Middle East. And that's because of this historical background. Anyway, I don't think, by the way, as a historian, I don't believe that history repeats itself, at least if we learn from history. I don't think we still live in the time of the Crusades, but I do believe that historical memory is very important. It will always continue to have its effect on our identity, on the other people's identity, and the way the West is dealing with Islamic world and Muslim people still today deeply affected by that long history of animosity and clash between the two civilizations. Even very, very secular Westerners, even atheists, and that's interesting because in my study of history of religion, we know that people can be sometimes very secular, but they are very fanatical also in terms of religion. Maybe he's not practicing Christian, but he might hate Muslims at the same time as a Christian. And he might be an atheist Jew, for example, but he hates Muslims, a religious hatred. So secularism doesn't change the historical memory of people, even with the deeply secularized Western countries today. The way they see Islam
Dr.
between
Shankit,
other religion or other nation is still very deeply affected by the past.
they are mostly Catholic actions, but and the Protestantism emerged after these Crusaders, at least the first round. But when you see the neoconservatives and evangelicals in America, they are even more maybe fanatic against Muslims than even the Catholics today. So, as you said,
I think I can say something about that. Yeah, true. For many Catholics, the clash is a clash of the past, but still, even very secularized France, we know how the Islam is treated today, how it's perceived, how it's attacked by public leaders, including President Macron, for example. But you're right about Protestantism. And I think the issue of Protestantism is much more complicated. It's something related to the Reformation and Protestantism, if we have to talk in terms of history of religion, is some kind of Judaized version of Christianity. Since Martin Luther, the founder of the Protestant Reformation, wrote his thesis that Jesus Christ was born a Jew, his treatise title that Jesus Christ was born a Jew. So the Protestants in general have extraordinary self-identification with Jews, and that's something very deeply religious. Some people think that the relation between the United States, for example, or the Anglo-Saxon Protestant in general, starting with Britain and then the Americans, their relation with the Jewish people or Israel, some people look at it as just a strategic and political issue. It's much more complicated than that. It has deep-rooted, it is very deeply rooted within the religious belief of people in the US and UK in their moral vision, in their historical memory. And that's why when General Lembe mentioned by Maher, when he came to Jerusalem, he didn't try to take Jerusalem back to Christianity, the way things used to be in the old times. No, he came to Jerusalem in order to hand it to the Jewish people, not to take it back to Christians. So there is a deep transformation within Christianity itself, especially the relation between Protestantism and the Jews is very complicated. I think that's another issue probably that needs to be studied and discussed separately. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And we have Dr. Zaid. Today, you see, I mean, we had, after the First World War, we had, today I go with the number third rounds of, Crusaders we lost. And also I see a struggle for independence when the colonizers came to invade our region. So after the First World War, immediately, people rebel against the colonizers, against French and British and Italian in Libya, etc., and maybe Spain in some part of Africa. And this generally failed. And we know even in like Morocco, when we have Abdul Karim Khattabi, I forgot, Khattabi ممكن. But when even the French...
Yes, Abdul Karim al-Khattabi, yeah.
Khattabi, okay. When French failed to stop him, the British came to the rescue. And so, they were having, a great independence movement. And, the colonizers, they cooperate with each other to stop. And we know the similar situation. Even today, they are cooperating. When it comes to, let's say, Syrians, for example, they prefer even Russia, even though Russia is a rival to the West, but they prefer, instead of giving the power to the people, they prefer Russia, stop them or something like that. So first wave was maybe after the First World War, second wave maybe after the Second World War, and today we have this Arab Spring and demand for democracy and independence. And how you see it, Dr. Zaid, can you summarize for us, please?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. I am sorry for disconnect. I was in the road. That's why we have in Istanbul many traffic and many undergrounds. I'm so sorry again. Thank you for awesome spaces, and thank you for all. Let me talk about the main question of this space, Hujam. On the question of space, where is the wrong and error in the Middle East? I think societies may be the main mistake and main wrong in entering stability, because to the absence of the project and the inability to agree on a fateful point that determines the future of people towards governments. Yani, now we talk about people's popular and governments. The absence of popular will is the most difficult stage for creating chaos and arguments for external interference. Unfortunately, the peoples have accepted to be at the mercy of political regimes that lack sufficient legitimacy to build stability in the region and its future. When we talk about Iraq and Afghanistan, here we talk about Middle East, for example, and we can compare between two samples, Iraq and Afghanistan. That's why I was talking in the first of in the beginning of this space, Dr. Ahmed. I was talking about the Iraqi experience in the contents of the chaos of the Middle East and how the Afghan situation could be repeated in Iraq again. So the United States has failed to establish a just political system in Iraq as it is in the Afghan model with some minor difference. But in the both cases, it can be considered that the region, it always goes through a better chance and chaos. And people try to make up for themselves again. Awareness of the people's in the only way to save the system from the dangers of collapse. Thank you very much, teacher. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have says from Mogadishu, but yes, I mean we can wrap up. This was a kind of a brainstorming in on the run.
Professor,
Yes.
Professor, if I may, I'd like to potentially ask the distinguished panel's opinion on 19th century Darwinism and the effects of that thinking, or the manifestation of that thinking, when it came to colonial dominance of that period and to this day. I believe there are still notions of superiority that are exerted and displayed and asserted by Western powers based on some level of racial superiority. I don't believe the social Darwinism has actually left our midst. I think people are still thinking to see if anybody else agrees with that and the effects of that thinking on present day affairs.
Dr. Mohammed can respond to that. I think the Darwinism, social Darwinism, is still valid. And what do you think, Dr. Shankiti?
Yeah, I think yes. We cannot explain everything through religious motives or through material motives. I think there is always combination. I remember one of our American professors of history of religion teaching us the American religious history. He said that the American religious history was American. He said, don't try to explain all American history through religious motives. Actually, he said there are 3 G's who motivated, or they were the drive behind American history: God, gold, and glory. These 3 G's are the 3 motivation. There are always combination of religious fanaticism with material greed, and also people seeking glory and greatness, and they have their own self-image and self-delusions. So I think that's the case in all human history, and definitely social Darwinism as a materialistic philosophy and vision of the world has a very deep impact on the European colonialism. And the 19th century is one of the least religious century in European history. People are more religious in 20th century and 21st century more than in the 19th century. And we can say that, yeah, materialism, whether it's Marxism or Darwinism or other ism, has its impact. But still, in normal life, ordinary people, ordinary soldiers, people still have religion very deeply embedded in their view. Even if they are not religious, the way religion is still a part of their identity and self-identification and borders between them and others. Exactly like you can find a Muslim who is not really very practicing, but Islam is a very strong part of his identity and the way he perceives himself and perceives others. Anyway, I think scholars of international relation today recognize, especially the constructualism the school of thought of constructualism, they recognize today the depth or the deep impact of religion on international relation. They don't longer explain the relation between nations just based on strategic and material gain, but then also there are some symbolic capital that is driving people and driving nations in their relation. And I think Samuel Huntington was not actually wrong when he highlighted the importance of religion and culture in the international politics. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We see this Darwinism also kind of a moralism to corrupt their, imperialism and exploitation, etc. For example, when Americans left Afghanistan, they all of a sudden they began to worry about the Afghan woman. Where were they? So like 20 years, what did they do? I mean, when they bombed many places, the Afghan woman didn't suffer from it. And where was America there to protect Afghan women? This is like
that speaks to a gross.
I think, Dr. Ahmed,
Sorry.
the difference between I think the difference between Taliban and America is that Taliban was pressing women, and America was pressing women, men, and children.
Yes, probably.
I think it speaks to a gross hypocrisy on behalf of the Americans, where their partner in the region, India, there's some real gross, mistreatment of women in the country, especially if you're from a lower caste, like the Dalits, what they call the Dalits in India. These women are being swung from trees. I've seen videos every day, being swung from trees and beaten by crowds of men. There's beatings in the street of husbands on their wives. This is, literally. So this is a reality. There's no real concern for women. It's an excuse to cover for their failure in Afghanistan. If they were genuine about the rights of women and the mistreatment of women, they would first point to India, where you have regular manifestations of mistreatment. So it's nothing more than hypocrisy in my eyes.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, and still, I believe we don't need to. We don't have, and we should not do any kind of apologetics for shortcomings of Taliban or any other force. But as Amr said, definitely the hypocritical attitude of Western power, especially the US, is much worse than any other shortcoming done by any party. And we should not forget that maybe some estimation said 156,000 Afghans were killed in the American war in Afghanistan. And we just need to ask, even if you are concerned only about women, okay, what about the widows and the daughters of those people who are killed? For example, all of those men who were killed, 160,000 men in Afghanistan, mostly men, they have families, they have wives who are widows, they have daughters who are